Brian's neural implant flickered with incoming data as he stepped into the combat arena. The gravity stabilizers hummed beneath his boots, calibrated to Earth's standard 9.807 meters per second squared. A quaint relic from humanity's homeworld that the Galactic Coalition still used for official duels. "You're certain about this?" Commander Selroth clicked his mandibles from the observation deck. "Humans have only been in the Coalition for 3 solar cycles." Brian adjusted his exoskeleton's servo motors, feeling the pneumatic pistons respond to his muscle tension. "I've studied their physiology extensively. Lower bone density, weaker muscular structure, slower neural processing. The data is conclusive." He'd spent weeks analyzing human combat footage from the integration wars. Their reaction times averaged 250 milliseconds glacial compared to his species' 140. Their endurance was impressive, certainly, but endurance meant nothing when the fight ended in seconds. The arena's electromagnetic barriers shimmered to life, creating a perfect cube 30 meters on each side. Sensor arrays embedded in the walls would track every movement, every energy expenditure, broadcasting the match across 17 star systems. Then she entered. Nyla walked with an economy of movement that Brian's tactical subroutines flagged immediately. No wasted energy, no unnecessary muscle engagement. Her neural implant was an older model. He could see the slight discoloration at her temple where the quantum processors interfaced with her cortex. She wore a standard-issue exoskeleton, but it had been modified. The actuator placements were different, optimized for something his databases couldn't immediately identify. "Brian of House Kelmar," the arena's AI announced, its voice propagating through localized air pressure variations. "Nyla Chen of Earth. Standard Coalition rules. Neurological knockout or voluntary submission ends the match. Lethal force is prohibited. Combatants, acknowledge." "Acknowledged," Brian said, his exoskeleton's carbon nanotube muscles tensing. "Acknowledged," Nyla replied. She smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. The starting klaxon released a precisely tuned 440 Hz tone. Brian moved first, his exoskeleton launching him forward at 4.2 Gs of acceleration. His right fist drove toward her center mass, guided by predictive algorithms that had mapped her probable movement vectors. The punch could generate 12,000 newtons of force, enough to shatter concrete. Nyla wasn't where his fist arrived. She'd rotated her body exactly 23 degrees, letting his momentum carry him past. Her elbow struck the back of his exoskeleton with surgical precision, hitting the thermal regulation port. Warning indicators flooded Brian's heads-up display as coolant pressure dropped by 18%. He spun, recalculating. Fast. Faster than the data suggested possible. "Interesting prosthetics," he said, buying microseconds to adjust his strategy. "Military grade?" "Civilian," Nyla replied, circling. "Earth makes do with what we have." Brian feinted left, then drove right, his knee actuators adding 340 kilograms of force to the strike. Nyla blocked with her forearm, but the impact should have fractured the bone even through the exoskeleton's shock absorption. It didn't. His tactical AI recalculated her bone density. Impossible. The readings suggested reinforcement at the molecular level, not Coalition technology. Something else. "You've been modified," he said, genuine curiosity breaking through his combat focus. "We all have." Nyla's fist caught him in the solar plexus. The exoskeleton absorbed most of the impact, but his internal organs still compressed. Oxygen saturation in his blood dropped 3%. Earth didn't have fancy anti-gravity tech or quantum computers when we started. We had biology, chemistry, evolution compressed into laboratories. Brian's next strike was faster, guided by pure instinct rather than computation. Nyla slipped under it, her movements flowing like water through a pipe, minimal resistance, maximum efficiency. Her palm strike hit his knee joint. The exoskeleton's gyroscopic stabilizers screamed warnings as he stumbled. She wasn't just fast, she was efficient in a way his species had engineered out of themselves millennia ago when they'd replaced muscle with machinery. "Your exoskeleton adds 42 kilograms, Nyla said, breathing easily despite the combat intensity. "Mine adds 8. You're carrying a weapons platform." I'm wearing athletic shoes. Brian's tactical subroutines offered 17 different attack vectors. He chose the most sophisticated, a three-strike combination that would force her into a predictable defensive pattern, then exploit the opening. Nyla broke his wrist on the second strike. The pain was immediate and absolute. His neural implant dumped endorphin analogs into his system, but the damage was done. Warning indicators showed microfractures in the radius and ulna. His exoskeleton automatically immobilized the limb. Humans evolved to throw rocks at prey for hours, Nyla said conversationally, pressing her advantage. Our shoulders are the most complex joints in known biology. We can generate force from our entire kinetic chain: feet, hips, core, shoulder, arm. You're fighting with limbs. I'm fighting with my whole body. Brian's left hand caught her next strike. Finally, he activated the exoskeleton's emergency power reserves, channeling every available watt into the magnetic grappling systems in his palm. Once he had her locked, the fight was over. Nyla twisted. Impossible. The magnetic field should have held her. But she'd somehow rotated her entire arm along the field lines, using the force to spin herself into a better position. Her knee hit his helmet at precisely 47 kilometers per hour. The impact rattled his brain against his skull despite the gel cushioning. His visual cortex misfired, painting streaks of false color across his vision. The neural implant tried to compensate, flooding his system with stimulants. Nyla's second strike hit the same spot. Neural knockout protocols engaged automatically. Brian's consciousness didn't fade so much as fragment, his thoughts scattering like particles after a collision. When awareness returned, Brian was staring at an unfamiliar ceiling. Medical sensors beeped steadily, measuring his vitals. His head felt like it had been used as a percussion instrument. "Who won?" he croaked. Commander Zelroth appeared in his field of vision, mandibles arranged in what Brian had learned to recognize as amusement. "The human female, Brian." Decisively. But the data was incomplete. Zelrath pulled up a holographic display showing the fight from multiple angles. Humans are what the xenobiologists call persistence hunters. They didn't evolve to be the strongest or the fastest. They evolved to simply not stop. Every system in their biology is optimized for efficiency, for extracting maximum output from minimal input. When you added machinery to machinery, you got more machinery. When they added machinery to biology. He gestured at the frozen image of Nyla's final strike. They created something new. Brian watched the replay, seeing clearly now what he'd missed in the moment. Nyla hadn't been faster. She'd been smarter about her movements, wasting nothing, positioning herself so that his own momentum worked against him. "She used physics," he said quietly. "They all do," Zelrath replied. "It's why the Coalition was so eager to integrate Earth. We have species that are stronger, faster, smarter. But humans?" His mandibles clicked appreciatively. "Humans are efficient. And in a universe bound by thermodynamics, efficiency might be the most dangerous trait of all." Brian closed his eyes, his neural implant already downloading the fight data for analysis. He'd lost, certainly. But he'd also learned something valuable. Never underestimate the species that conquered its own planet with nothing but endurance and stubbornness. "When can I challenge her to a rematch?" he asked. Zelrath's laughter echoed through the medical bay. "Now you're thinking like a human.